Good to see you. Okay, good. So I hope that we can get through this relatively easily. There isn't a lot, there are a couple of items on here that do require us to take a vote today. So I just wanted to give a couple of updates on on some of the projects. So in terms of the first one is housing choice and Mass Works. According to Rebecca Slick, we have expended all the funds from Housing Choice, and she has submitted the invoices to the program, and I believe is working on the final report at this point for them. So that needs to be in by the 15th of July, but I think we're fine there. We also, in terms of Mass Works, we're on target in terms of the time frame for the work that was expected to be completed by this time. And we've invoiced, I believe, somewhere in the range of 120 or 130,000 to Mass Works for engineering services from environmental partners. That's consistent with what we had said would be spent by this time. So in fact, I'll just continue right on with that, the progress report with regard to environmental partners. We did have a meeting with environmental partners, not this past Friday, but the Friday before. They were here and we met with them to review the progress drawings and discuss some issues related to it, such as placement of hydrants and any changes to the plans. And Paul Millette from Environmental Partners was there along with one of his associates. And we agreed that Paul Millette agreed with the recommendations of Chief Pauley, Fire Chief, regarding the placement of hydrants along Route 6 and Briar Lane. So I think we're good on that. The one thing we did ask for was them to consider adding a corporation stop on Route 6 across from Money Lane, which is the entrance to Eric Way. We realized that there's a apartment building in there that has at least 9 units in it, and then there are some additional residential properties down in there. So there's a potential that neighborhood could be served by the water system sometime in the future. So at least we'll have a corporation stop there where we could run a line to them. The plans also include a hydrant and a curb stop right in front of Outer Cape Health Services, so that if and when they wish to sign up, that would be available to them. The schedule for the work for that is that Paul is going to be working with Rebecca in terms of Rebecca Slick in terms of getting an RFP out for contractors. We hope to do that within the next month and a half or so, and then to do the selection of contractors in the early fall so that they could hopefully begin work on the system in the fall, continue through the winter months, and finish with the construction of the water main by the end of May of 2022. So things are moving along according to schedule. So any questions on the Environmental Partners project? Okay. Then On the same day, we had the meeting at 95 Lawrence Road on the affordable housing project. And it was a bidder's site visit. And surprisingly, we had a number of developers and architects show up for that meeting. I'd say there's probably about 20 people there, including some representatives from the town. There seemed to be a fair amount of interest in the project, and so we anticipate that once that RFP goes out, that we will hopefully be hearing back from some of them. I believe the time frame on that for responding to the RFP is toward the end of July, and again, Rebecca will be kind of coordinating the work on the RFP. The next item that's on here is to review the draft of the Wellfleet Municipal Consumer Confidence Report that was prepared by Whitewater. And so I trust everybody got this. And if there were any questions, I just want to point out that the one thing that's on here is that's somewhat different than it from past years was the discussion or the mention of the E. coli outbreak last fall and how that was handled. So did everybody get a chance to read that? Tom, did you?
I'm not muted.
And Neil, I'm not sure if you would. I just want to read that section. There's one paragraph here, because I think this is the point. What we're going to be asking for is approval to use this report for our annual consumer confidence report. So the language on this, the issue of the E. coli, is that it was a level 2 assessment, and that the findings showed that on September 23rd, 2020, a TC positive and E. coli positive sample was detected at 45 Gristmill Way, Pump House, Finished Tap. Repeat samples taken on 9/24, 2020 with two sample sites at 10 Whitetail Lane and 110 Oak Ridge Road. Both tested positive for E. coli. A third sample on 9/25/20 taken at 251 Coles Neck Road also tested positive for E. coli. So if you follow the progression on this, it was essentially coming down from the Gristmill Way well site down along Coles Neck Road. That was the final spot where it was found was, as I said, was on Coles Neck Road. A boil water order was issued by the town, and flush scan. The boil water order was issued on 9/26/20. Chlorination and flushing started on 9/27/20, and repeat samples were collected on 9/28, as well as all subsequent samples collected have since have been absent of E. coli. The boil water order was lifted on 10/1/2020. The level 2 assessment determined that an electrical conduit connection to well number 2 at 45 Gristmill Way had a breach, allowing space for small bugs or animals to enter, which may have been a source of contamination of the well water. Well number 2 was sealed and chlorinated. It remains offline right now, isolated from the distribution system. We continue to monitor the system closely for total coliform and E. coli. So that's the extent of the report. That's what was shared with DEP. And that's what will be reported in this consumer confidence report. So the rest of it is
Jim, Neil Gadway. Jim, I inspected the site with one of the crew from Whitewater, and I found that there was a broken electrical conduit leading to a well in the chain fence enclosure, and I believe it was broken by a lawnmower. It looks, I see that kind of damage when their lawnmowers hit that plastic pipe. It was broken and it was open to any, most likely ants would be causing the contamination. But I believe it was fixed and it could be back into service as long as it has integrity.
So Neil, but do you have, with respect to what's in the confidence report, are you in agreement with what Whitewater had put in that as to what the potential cause was for it, that it was a breach in the conduit?
It's just, I'm certain it was caused by a lawnmower because the grass is kept trimmed in that around that well site.
But there was all
probably using. Go ahead.
It was also, but it was my understanding also that there was a crack noted in the well cap itself.
It may have been. I do not recall the crack. Just a crack may not have been a cause, but there was an entire section of conduit which was broken and open. You could see the wires, and that shouldn't have been. So it was, I believe, fixed, and the well should be completely serviceable now.
But so the issue here is that what goes into the report is showing that there was a breach in the conduit. Would you agree with that?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
That's what's critical, that's what needs to be reported as the potential cause of this E. coli outbreak.
Whoever maintains the grass in that area should. It's a big well. I couldn't have missed it. They just probably they're using a sliding mower and misjudged how close they were, and on contact it broke in the PVC plastic.
Yeah, but at least we know, or at least we're in agreement that it was a breach in the conduit. However that happened, that there was the breach.
Yes.
Conduit. Okay.
But is that well still considered offline, or?
Yes, we're not. We haven't.
It should be able to.
But you may recall that was the well we had that had the pump had to be replaced. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it? Let's see.
Okay.
John, are you on with us now?
I am. Can you hear me?
The pump.
Jim?
Was that John, was that the pump that had to be replaced?
No, the pump that got replaced was Boy Scout.
No, I mean, well, there was one that was replaced up at the Gristmill Way site as well. Whether that was well number 1 or well number 3, I don't recall.
I think I can't answer that question because I probably wasn't around then when it got replaced.
It was earlier on.
Yeah.
But
either way, though, at this point, I think if you chlorinated and flushed, you could run those wells if you needed to
Well,
with the new
I know that
controls.
there was an issue with the well that we had up there that where the pump was replaced. Subsequent to that, and this was when Roy Mahar was still here, the when pumping from that well, there was sediment found in the well. So it may need to be flushed for an extended period of time to ensure that the sediment is cleared. One of the things that I believe it was Mahar Services that did the replacement on that pump. One of the things that was noted in that was that they had recommended that the actual steel lining should be clean, and that was not done. So that may still be something that we have to do for that well.
Well, that's a steel cased well, and I think that was installed in 1988.
Yes.
And it would be very rusty. In my experience, steel cased well don't hold up very well long term on Cape Cod.
But I think what I wanted to suggest on this is that we keep that one offline for the time being until all the work is done up there at the Gristmill Way site, the new water main and the connections and everything. And when that's going on, that perhaps that's when we should have this steel casing then cleaned. If you're suggesting that it needs to be replaced, that's a different matter. But
cleaning it just delays the inevitable. It will result in discoloration of water because there's a substantial drawdown every time that pump operates, and it's like using a scrubbing brush in the inside of the well. It could yield discolored, rusty water, and that's that we don't want.
so are you suggesting, Neil, that it should be replaced?
At some point, yes.
Okay, so I think that's something we have to put into the work for the installation of water.
Sounds right to me. That would be a good time to do any maintenance unless we need it.
Yeah, okay. But as far as the going back to the consumer confidence report, are we okay with the language that is in there regarding the potential contamination due to a breach in the conduit?
It's been described and re-described.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the difference.
So let's see. So do we have, is Curt with us still?
A minute ago.
We dropped him. He got dropped.
Okay. Well, there's still three of us here on this.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a quorum. So I'd like to someone to recommend using the report, the consumer confidence report that was developed by Whitewater.
I'll recommend that now.
Okay, you move it. And Neil, would you second it?
Second.
Second, okay. All right. So we'll take a vote on it. Tom,
Aye.
Neil,
Aye.
Curt's with us. Curt, we're voting on the consumer confidence report from that Whitewater prepared. are you in agreement to accept the report as is so that we can get this published? Yay or nay?
Muted.
You're on mute, Curt. Well, I don't know if he's even, I see his,
Okay, now
There you go.
am I off mute?
yeah,
Yes, you're okay.
I'm in favor.
okay, good. And I am in favor of it as well. So it's 4-0 in favor of the consumer confidence report as developed by Whitewater. All right, so the next item on here is a discussion of, this is kind of a continuation of the water conservation measures that we had at the last meeting. And I just wanted to ensure I had a chance to look at the report about the Boy Scout camp well. And Neil and I have both, we have discussed this. And I just want to point out that the difference in the report between well A and well B, it appeared to be a scaling issue. That is that they used a different scale, or Butch Nealon at Cape Water Resources used a different scale for well A than he did with well B. Although the depth of the water is essentially, would essentially be the same if they used the correct scaling. So the point of these water levels is that there has been no significant change in the water levels since January, at least in this case, since January of 2020 to June of this year. Well, B had at January of 2020 had a water depth of 54.1 feet, and in June of this year, 53.3 feet. Talking with Bruce Nealon on this, he pointed out that the recharge rate on these wells is very good. It takes less than 5 minutes for the water to come back up to the pre-pumping level. So the next work that he was intending to do was to revise the scaling on well A, that where there was an issue. That's the well that the pump we lost in June of 2020 to the lightning strike. So he is apparently going to be working with Mike at that site to do a rescaling on the SCADA system, to bring it back in line, to ensure that we can get more accurate and synchronized readings between well A and well B, and confirm there is no significant difference in the water levels, and that we're not overextending either one of those.
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you ask them? I think you have already, but can you see if they can get the data back to the back as far as we can get it? I think it goes back to, because you and I recall, I think other board members recall the same conversation occurring, but also relating back to data that I think goes back to like 2010.
Yeah, we
It
have. Well,
shows-
I saw the logs there at the site that go back several years. I just pulled these myself when I was up there at the last visit. So, but there are more, and Jonathan had offered to assist with that to get more expanded reports. But I went back to 2007.
Yeah, no, I know it's a lot of work, but I think it's very valuable, because I think the public may feel like just a year is sort of, well, we don't really know. That's kind of just a year. What does it really look like on a, some time scale that's more geologic? And I think we've got at least 10 or more years, which that's going to give people a different level of confidence that
Right.
A, the recharge rate hasn't changed, and B, the levels haven't changed in a very long period of time.
So I do know that when I looked at 2016, 2017, that the wells, the levels were essentially comparable to what they are now. So, but Jonathan had offered to expand that report and take us back further, and going forward to provide us with, monthly readings on that.
That'd be terrific, Jim. Because I think people aren't going to be comfortable until I think we have, that type of a, long period duration. This isn't just a seasonal issue. This isn't just last year. I mean, rainfall and weather have been highly variable over this period of time. So including severe drought during the, during the last 10 years, we have had a couple of severe droughts. And I think that'll go a long way toward helping people feel comfortable that what we're telling them is actually true.
Right. Well, I agree with you. So I think we'll look forward to having, regular reports going forward, and also if we can go back and get whatever information is available, from the prior years, that we could add to this. We may have to, if the scaling, as you can see on this report, was different back then, we may have to estimate what those levels were in well A as compared to well B.
There is also a tidal influence in the level of the water in that well. It is a small variation, but it would be handy to have the well status be coordinated with the tidal level at the time that it's taken. It's a little known fact that the tidal influences the groundwater as well as in the bay and the ocean. It's
I don't know.
but it's an issue.
Yeah. I don't know how that would be accomplished with the existing system, with the SCADA system, whether or not there's a way to do that.
Simple enough, it stayed on the time when they tested the well. The timetables are available forever, so you can easily.
Yeah, but the while Neil's right, I mean, it does clearly have an impact. It's also a variable that washes out on average over time because because the tide's regular. So it's
Right.
it's a factor that on average over an entire year it becomes non-existent. It does influence the specific readings that you're taking at a particular point in time, but if you have enough readings, statistically, they should be around mid, high, and low tide levels, such that that should wash out of the data set. No pun intended.
It's a difference. It's an incoming tide or an outgoing tide. I've read the hydrologist report. I know the hydrologist, and he spelled it out, the differences. And if you have a copy of the hydrologist report, you can make your mind up how important it is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree it's important, Neil. I think but to make the I don't know how we'd adjust the data set. It does get a little complicated. I mean, we do have the tables, but you basically have to have both the tide and the reading on a time scale for time of day and that day, and then have a factor to adjust the well reading based on that tide. It gets pretty complicated.
That's that's
Probably an offset too.
Yeah, and my thought is statistically, it washes out on average over a year. You know, it probably washes out over a month. You know, there's some period of time at which point it becomes, you know, even though each reading is wrong, on average, all of the readings end up being correct because the tide is both above and below a certain level.
Right.
yeah.
So,
And it may not, I'm not sure how much, you know, for these particular, it'd be interesting to know for sure, Neil. I think it's a great point. And it's worth understanding how much of an impact it does have at our well locations. But you'd have to get some pretty sophisticated statistical, you know, analysts to get the corrections done. You know, to the data.
There are also some observation wells around the Boy Scout camp well site. They're remote. But they can be accessed.
Hey,
so I see that Jonathan is on with us now. Jonathan, you had offered to provide us with monthly reports going forward on this. If you have access to reports and how far back they go, it would be useful that if we were able to see, either if not monthly, then at least quarterly, what the levels are or have been over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I can put that together. A monthly level going back 10 years. I should have all that pretty readily available for me, so I can get that together for you over the next week.
All right.
great.
All right, good, that's great. So staying on this issue for a moment of the water conservation, I know we've gotten a couple of inquiries from residents here in town regarding water conservation measures, inquiries from property owners who are not on the water system and do not have access to the water system. So I think the point of that being that we really can't dictate how people with private wells use their water source unless there's a statewide mandate. I don't think we have any authority to tell people they can't water their lawn, for example, if they're using a private well. And that was a complaint that one of the folks mentioned, that they're in an area where their neighbors are using the water to basically water their lawns, and concerned about the impact on their water supply as a result of that.
That position, or as far as authority, I don't think it'd be unreasonable for us to have strong recommendations else are also being, because we still are all in the same. I don't want to sound like teaming in.
Well, I'm still of the opinion that we should be encouraging resident people, both on the system, on the municipal system, as well as people who are on private wells to conserve water to the extent possible, given the drought conditions that exist throughout the Cape. So I think we had said at our last meeting that we were going to encourage that voluntary kind of conservation measures for people on the system as well as those, but that could be across town, not just the municipal water users, but private citizens as well.
Right.
Private wells. So, any other thoughts on that?
I guess my only thought on it, Jim, is that I think we should always be encouraging conservation and efficient use of resources. That's just good. That's just good practice. I think we should also be at the same time communicating that, based on the data that we have, even with, drought conditions, and I'm not sure we have drought conditions in, per se in Wellfleet. I've heard various things I actually started to do a little investigation on it, and different people are saying different things. And I don't know what the state of Massachusetts is saying, or the National Weather Service, specifically about water conditions in Wellfleet. But the long-winded comment is, I think we should be indicating that despite the fact that there are drought conditions in Massachusetts, that the Wellfleet water system is indicating that we don't have any supply issues, and that people should not be concerned about supply issues with the town of Wellfleet, but naturally should conserve and be efficient with their use of water resources.
How
Very
would
good.
you? Yeah. How
Because
would
here's
you?
the thing, there's a drought where the trees, leaves fall off and dry out. And there's a drought with bottled water in the aquifer. And so you're right.
I got about half of that, Tom.
I was saying, there's two different conditions going on here. We have a drought like your lawn burns up and your trees shrivel. But we also have, how does the drought affecting the aquifer? And they aren't necessarily the same. As we can see right now, we actually have better levels in the well than we had a year ago. So I think that Felix was right. Kurt's answer was, these are two different things, related, but not the same.
Yeah.
Right. And my concern is I don't want to panic people that there's a problem in the water supply.
No, I agree with you, Curt. But how would you propose that we get that message out there effectively?
I think we can say, despite drought conditions, Wellfleet's water supply situation is excellent. However, residents should always be efficient and use water resources wisely and conserve water.
Right. But how do we broadcast that message?
We could just put it on our website, like on the homepage or something.
That's fine. I agree.
I don't think we want to do a flashing light on the sign on Route 6.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because it's too complicated a message. But and we could. I think if we put it on the website, and we also go to the next Board of Selectmen meeting, or even a town meeting, and just read that statement, for the public. Town meeting's as good as any place to broadcast that message.
Right.
During our budget. Because it's coming up.
There's going to be a time comes when the water issues are being discussed. That would be a good.
What would you think about doing using the emergency alert system and saying, it's important to conserve water, and please check the town's website, particularly the water system's website, on the town's website, for conservation recommendations.
I don't
Yeah, I'm
know.
not sure.
As soon as you mention that,
Tom's probably saying the same thing I'm thinking, but I'm not sure we want to use the emergency system for a normal message.
Yeah.
You know, I think we want to reserve that for if there was actually an emergency, which there isn't.
Well, I think your idea of doing it at town meeting is a great one. That works. And then, of course, updating the website so that it reflects our recommendations there as well.
And if Tom has that data on the well levels, that'd be, we could have like a graph, and here's the statement, here's the real data.
so it just becomes an ongoing emergency. It doesn't look so dramatic.
Jim?
Yeah, I know that
Gail would like, Jim,
yeah, I
Gail wants to speak. Okay.
Yeah, okay, well, let's let Gail speak, offer a comment.
Hi. I have a question, but I want to start out by saying that I took the time to go to the description of the water board on the town website, and it seemed to me that the water board is expected to advise the select board that its role is not just to manage the municipal system, but to consider the water situation as a whole, both private wells and municipal, and even to represent Wellfleet's water issues on a county level. And there were probably other things said. It's all set out on the website. Now, I couldn't hear anything that Tom said, so maybe he's answered my question, but I'm wondering, I don't know a lot about this, but it seems to me that the town wells the water's drawn from the thickest part of the lens. And that's seems to me that in a drought situation, that part is still going to have some water. My concern is, do we have information about the outlying areas, the people who are on the edges? And if we don't have information, I would think we need to get that.
Well,
the test wells, are there any test wells?
I can't understand you, Tom.
Pardon?
I can't hear you at all. So I don't know if you're talking to me, or I'm going to be quiet now because I've said what I needed to say.
Gail, and maybe Tom can just nod if I've got this correctly here, that in terms of that there are test wells throughout the town where that measure the level of water in those wells in various locations throughout the town. And clearly in some areas there's different. If you go online, you can see the results of that. There's clearly areas where there's significant variation in the water levels, and it's obvious that they recharge when, as a result of precipitation, particularly rain and snow in the winter months. But Neil may also have experience with this based on his work with various private wells throughout the town.
Yes, there are completion reports that must be filed with the Board of Health every time a well is installed by a well driller. So these can be easily accessed. It's public information. You just have to know what particular property you're interested in. It's a well completion report. It has everything you could possibly want to know about a well.
Deposit for a high school kid.
But Neil, that's a well completion report. I mean, I'm hearing what Gail is saying, and I'm trying to mull it over and try to figure out like how we could be responsible, who should be responsible, and how you'd implement something like that. And it seems to me that if you were going to do this right, you'd have a lot of data points from a lot of different wells all over town, because they're very, very different and variable. And then you'd report that out on a SCADA system somehow to alert residents. I mean, the well completion report is a snapshot in time. So it doesn't tell you anything about the variability ongoing. And I'm not sure USGS, I'm not sure if there's a state agency or a federal agency or anybody that actually even does that. I mean, it's a noble idea, and I can see the merit. I'm just not sure how you implement it. And I think given the large degree of variability, it would certainly be very expensive to have a monitoring system that's tied into SCADA to alert residents, especially on private wells, what their local situation is. And we'd also take on some liability, because if we didn't warn somebody and we were warning other people based on our data, and knowing that our data is not complete, I don't know what kind of other problems we get into. To me, I mean, I hear the need and the concern. I'm just not sure we have the resources or I'm not sure we're the right agency to do something like that.
Who monitors our test wells?
I don't know, Gail, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Again, I can't hear Neil or Tom. No, I don't, except that I was surprised when I went to the town website and I saw the description of the water board's responsibilities, because they go beyond the municipal system, which I didn't know and wouldn't have understood. And that got me thinking. So I wanted to share that with you and get you thinking about it. And my concern would be that you tailor any message to the fact that you're speaking with regard to the municipal wells that you know about. And I think that if there's a drought situation possibility, somebody has to find out about the wells that are on the out, that aren't drawing water from the thickest part of the lens.
Well, one thought I do have, Gail, is I can reach out to Hillary and talk to her about what data she does have and see what she thinks. I mean, it's because that's also it's really a health agent responsibility as well to let people know that, whether it's a coliform issue or whether it's a level issue, I think there's some coordinated responsibility there. And just let me see what she thinks, because she may have some other ideas too. I mean, I hear the desire, and I think it's worthy. I'm just not sure how to do it.
Right. And again, I was surprised by the description. It seemed that the select board is to look to the water board for advice in this very kind of situation of possible drought. And that advice would be broad advice for the whole town, not just the municipal part of the system.
Right, I get that. My problem is that there's probably 2,000 or more wells in the town of Wellfleet, and we know we've got data on maybe 10.
Yeah, I hear it. I just
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to be quiet now.
No, I mean, no. It's not. I'm not trying to shut down discussion. It's a very interesting, practical issue about which people are concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, I share the concern. I don't know any other municipality. I just don't know anybody else that's doing something as broad as what's being suggested.
Well, one thing, Curt,
The DEP may have some some results from some of the wells they monitor.
Well, what we do have is I would say the broadest source of information that we have available to us is the water reports that exist within the town for private wells. That granted, those are static reports, but they do show areas where there's higher sodium levels, higher nitrate levels. And I don't know that you can automatically assume that a higher sodium level means that there's a problem with the water in the well, except that, it's not good.
Yeah,
Geographic location determine sodium in particular, and to some extent nitrate. But it's a picture, it's a snapshot in time when the well was drilled and the water test was done. It's not an ongoing thing. So we need to access somebody who measures it ongoing.
right. Right. And I don't know where that data source is. I'll talk, I'm happy to reach out to Hillary, and, we're having regular conversations with DEP folks as well. I'll ask them, see if they've got any, idea where there's data that might be, helpful in that regard.
And
just see what we can find out.
You might check with the Herring River Project, because they have some wells in the area that they'll be flooding. So, and some of those areas are at the outer edge of the lens. So they may be collecting data that's useful. And I think they're working with the Center for Coastal Studies on some of that collection.
And USGS is another source. I mean, anyway, I guess the first thing to do is just find out what data is out there and how much of it's real time versus static, like Neil said, and whether it would be useful. I mean, I think it's perfectly reasonable to try to respond to the concerns, but I don't think we want to be Pollyannish that we're going to provide the kind of information that people are really looking for right off the bat.
I understand.
Jim, if I can chime in for a minute. Hello?
Next segment's enough.
No.
Or anybody?
No,
Trying to fix it here.
well, can't wait for us to get back to in-person meetings where we can
Yes.
have complete conversation, So, but I think so far what we have come away from with this is that we're going to encourage, through various means, encourage conservation, both in the system as well as in, with residents who have private wells, and encourage that. And at the same time, as Curt had suggested, make sure people understand that the municipal water system is, that we have adequate water at this point. We're not suggesting that there's a problem with the municipal water system. We just want people to be cognizant of the importance of conservation measures throughout the town. I'd like to move on. We have one more item that we need to discuss, and that's the meeting minutes from the June 1st meeting. And we do need a vote on one of the issues that was related to that. As you may see, in the June 1st meeting, we had talked about the wastewater articles that were going to be coming up at town meeting. And Curt may want to remind us what those are. And we had agreed that we were going to vote on them during this meeting, or actually it was last week's meeting. So I would just ask you if you could, if you don't recall what they are, if Curt, if you could give a quick rundown on what those are.
Yeah, Article 19 is the article to provide funding for advanced technology septic systems. And what's interesting about that article is that as a result of the Conservation Law Foundation lawsuit against Mashpee and Barnstable and DEP, one of the things that they actually asked in the lawsuit was that communities go beyond the allowance for Title V systems and actually stop Title V systems from going in the ground. And that they're basically saying that they're inadequate, they're causing the problem, and we need to stop, communities need to stop allowing Title V's to go in because they're proximate to the cause of water degradation. And of course, Article 19 specifically does that in terms of providing an incentive to get people to put in an advanced system that does remediate wastewater down to the level that a standard sewage treatment, sewer treatment system would do. So I think that helps protect the town. It's proactive in the vein of what Conservation Law Foundation is now suing other communities for, and really puts Wellfleet in a very positive light with regard to this particular program. So that's really all I have to say on 19. I don't know if we want to just take them one at a time, Jim, or how you want to handle it.
I would recommend that we take them one at a time.
So I guess if anybody has any other questions about it, I'm happy to try to elucidate whatever I might know.
Great.
I have no questions. Tom doesn't. So I move that we recommend, how does it work now with town meeting with these articles?
It would just be recommend Article 19.
I move that the Water Commission recommend Article 19 at the upcoming town meeting. Second from Tom.
Second,
Neil, what your vote?
aye.
Tom? Aye. Curt?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So that's Article 19. The next one?
The next one is Article 20. Article 20 is about doing basically a hydrogeologic feasibility assessment of whether we could do a permeable reactive barrier along the area from, say, Route 6 and Main Street all the way around down Commercial, around to Kendrick Avenue potentially, and even up to maybe as far as Keller's Corner. The idea, though, is that this would simply be the hydrogeologic assessment of how much nutrient is already in the groundwater, what the depth is. It would give us an idea of what the cost for doing a permeable reactive barrier would be if we were to expand it. Keeping in mind that the permeable reactive barrier is something that was demonstrated in Falmouth probably about 12 years ago. They've had great results in Falmouth. And more recently, Eastham installed one and Orleans installed one. Those have been operating successfully for about a year now. And the kind of the neat thing about a permeable reactive barrier is it takes nutrient that's in the groundwater, converts it to nitrogen gas, or removes it from the groundwater, And it's the only thing that can do that, because once nutrients are in the groundwater, there's no other way to get them out before they end up in the estuary. So it's an interception technique. And again, this would just be a $50,000 for the feasibility analysis. However, I think we're very likely to get the whole entire thing funded from either, from some other source, whether it's DEP or EPA. Both are very interested in helping us out with that. So I think we're going to get some outside help. But at least this puts it on the radar to move forward to go after that kind of grant funding.
I'm saying yes. So I hear a motion then that we recommend a town meeting for the water commissioners recommend approval of Article 20.
Second.
Okay. We'll take a vote then. Neil,
Aye.
Tom, aye. Curt,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So that's Article 20. So there's one more, correct?
Yes, Article 21 is the big one. That's a little over $1.9 million to construct a cluster traditional wastewater treatment facility in conjunction with the 95 Lawrence Affordable Housing Project. This was a result of a Cape Cod Commission feasibility analysis that showed that this would be the most cost-effective approach to remediate nitrogen in the Duck Creek watershed from this project. And the net of it is that it would allow the construction of the 45 units, as well as connecting the elementary school, the fire and police stations. The result being that we'd actually be able to reduce nitrogen in the watershed simply by adding those additional Title V loads to the system. We could actually reduce loads in the watershed while actually providing this affordable housing complex. So it's kind of amazing that the numbers worked out that way. In addition to that, the facility would be able to handle neighborhood loads, and there are about 30 houses in the nearby neighborhood that at a future date could also connect, and that would just further reduce the nitrogen loads in the Duck Creek watershed. But this particular article is simply to get the facility committed and get construction going, so that we can at least get the 95 Lawrence road project, get the developers comfortable that they're going to be covered with a treatment system.
Right. I have a question. Have you reached out for additional funding or other sources of funding for this?
Yeah, we did. Thank you, Jim. We did submit a grant request to MassWorks for the entire amount of the project. And that went in about 15 days ago. We should hear in August as to whether, whether we were successful in that. But the MassWorks is all about, this type of a project. It's very, very high priority for MassWorks grants. So, you can never promise something, but I think we submitted an excellent grant request. Becky Slick helped really, quarterback that, and the consultants that prepared the consulting report worked hard on it. The housing folks worked hard on it. I think we really did do a great job on that grant request, and so I'm optimistic we'll hear something positive from them on that.
All right. So do I hear a motion to recommend Article 21 at the town meeting?
Not that enthusiastic about this one, but still recommend.
Okay, I second it. So we'll take a vote on it. I think the alternative here, but let's uh, so it's moved and seconded. I would just like to make a comment on it that which Curt didn't necessarily address this, but what's the alternative if we don't do this, Curt?
Well, I don't see any, unfortunately, I don't see any other alternative because the project itself is likely to, I mean, DEP is likely to require that we do nitrogen mitigation with this project. The Wellfleet Harbor is a nitrogen sensitive watershed, and DEP has talked about where they have to, where they're involved in granting a wastewater discharge permit or any kind of permitting relative to a project of this magnitude. They want to see, they want to see nitrogen reduction. So I'm not sure that the project could go forward without a proposal like this. And I think we're just very fortunate that we got the Cape Cod Commission to fund this analysis so we could actually find an alternative that would meet what I think DEP's requirements are going to be in a matter of a year or two. They're not current requirements from DEP. They've been making a lot of noises about this coming down the pike. So this is sort of an insurance policy to keep this project moving forward. But also, like I said, I think there's a very high probability that we're going to get a significant amount of grant funding for it anyway.
I have one question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I know the plans have not been drawn up or what they might keep, but where would this and who's treatment plant? Wait and see to decide.
I didn't get the question, Tom.
Yeah, I couldn't hear the whole thing either. Sorry.
No. All right. So it's been moved and seconded that the Board of Water Commissioners recommend approval of Article 21 at town meeting. So I'll take a vote now. Neil, you're
Aye.
aye. Okay. Tom,
Aye.
Curt,
Aye.
and I agree. Aye. So it's 4-0 to recommend the Article 21. Okay. Final thing is approval of the minutes of June 1st, 2021.
I move
Any-
that we approve those minutes. I didn't really see any corrections.
Yeah, nor did I. I second that. Take a voice vote. Neil,
I don't think I was at that meeting.
let's see.
No, it wasn't.
You weren't. You were not. Okay. So,
No.
I guess we have to hold until we have Gail. And I'm sorry, until we have Kateri with us.
Right.
No, we still have a quorum. The three of us. Okay.
Yeah.
So, voice vote. Curt,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
and I agree. Aye. So the minutes of the meeting of the 1st of June are approved. So that's it for for what we had on the agenda. We need to agree on a date for the next meeting. Since 2 weeks out would put us at would put us at the 6th of July. Um, Any problems with the 6th?
I think Monday's a holiday, isn't it?
Monday is the
Monday or
holiday.
the second?
Monday
Yeah,
is the holiday.
so you might want to move it to the 13th.
Think we're all gonna be hungover?
That's fine with me. We can move to 13th.
I don't know when people's vacations are, so.
Right.
What do you mean? We're always on vacation.
Yeah.
You're funny.
He's right.
All right, well, we can do it on the 13th. I'm fine with that. We'll hold it on the 13th. Hopefully, we'll have an update for everyone by that time as to whether or not we can start to resume holding meetings in person. All right, if there's nothing more.
Just one more thing, Jim, just you might want to forward the votes of the committee to Dan so that he has that on the
Yes,
warrant
okay.
articles. I think
Dan
they
who?
usually go to Dan
Dan
Silverman.
Moderator.
Jim, I'm gonna email them to you tonight, and then you can send them to Dan. Okay,
All right,
is that all right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually it just gets distributed to Dan and then if you want, the Board of Selectmen and Charlie.
okay. So do I hear a motion and second to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Okay. And on the vote, Tom?
Aye.
Neil?
aye.
Curt?
Aye.
And I say aye. So it's 4-0. We stand adjourned.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Gail.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Yep.
Bye.